Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen McGrath, Head of Public Affairs, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hi everyone.
Now then, wishing someone Happy New Year after a week into January can be unwanted and insincere according to Metro News. So instead, I'll simply say the Grapevine is back. I'm excited for its return, and we have, as usual, got plenty to talk about. Dennis, start us off in 2023 as you mean to go on. What's up first?
Well, Helen, towards the end of last month, the Committee on Standards Chair, Lord Evans, issued a fascinating end-of-year blog. So here's what he said. Lord Evans began by paying tribute to public servants across the country who have continued to formulate policy and deliver services to citizens. He said, "Our system benefits from having an impartial and effective civil service as part of the checks and balances in our democracy. It allows essential government business to continue while new political leadership takes shape." He also went on to applaud those who put themselves forward for political office, both nationally and locally. "Our system relies," he said, "on talented people willing to participate, debate, and take decisions on behalf of the public. And this can be especially difficult at a time when there continues to be unacceptable levels of abuse and intimidation of those in public life." Lord Evans said that public standards issues have continued to cause concern this year, and although it can be argued that our structures have encountered and mostly withstood a great deal of challenge, there remains an urgent need to update and strengthen them in both central and local government. And interestingly, Lord Evans said that the committee continues to receive impassioned pleas from people caught up in local standards issues who feel the system is wholly inadequate. Democratic accountability via the ballot box is insufficient on its own. Our system relies on checks and balances in between elections to deal with serious cases and to maintain standards. Lord Evans said that the limited government response to the committee's 2019 report on ethical standards in local government was regrettable, and he hopes that the suggested reforms can be looked at with fresh eyes. Similarly, he said, Upholding Standards in Public Life, published in November 2021, recommended stronger rules, greater independence, and a better compliance culture for central government. And this recognised the need for urgent attention to standards issues to prevent a further scandal like the Greensill case. Lord Evans concludes that proactive and ongoing attention to standards will always be necessary to ensure the systems and processes are able to meet the challenges faced today. And while it is understandable that major events can overtake, we can ill afford another scandal with the subsequent knock to public trust. And looking ahead, the committee will be publishing its report on Leading in Practice in January, and this report will share how a range of organisations have sought to inspire and support ethical behaviour following a scandal or problem that has occurred.
Well, we will definitely be examining that report, Dennis, on the podcast and elsewhere when it's published. Now, on the 2nd of January 2023, the government added the Grenfell Tower survivor settlement policy to its official website page, some 5.5 years following the awful tragedy. Now, we learn from numerous press reports that up to a dozen firefighters who tackled the blaze at Grenfell Tower have been diagnosed with terminal cancer. According to reports, the cancers are understood to be mainly digestive cancers and leukemia. Many are rare cancers which are being linked to the high levels of unprecedented exposure to contaminants during the rescue effort, with commentators fearing that many more will become sick as time goes on, mirroring what happened following the Twin Towers attack in New York. A 2019 study by the University of Central Lancashire found soil contamination from the disaster caused by the fire could lead to an increased risk of cancer and respiratory problems of those living in the area. Analysis of soil, debris and char samples of insulation boards used on the tower revealed heightened concentrations of cancer-causing chemicals and proven carcinogens, including benzene, within 200 metres of the tower. It is understood the Fire Brigades Union is commissioning further research into the impact, but it begs the question as to the extent of further loss of life arising from the events at Grenfell Tower, and whether those members of the public who rushed to the scene to help, or indeed lived very close proximity to the tower, might also be so affected in future years. Since the tragic events of 9/11 in America, researchers have continued to study the prevalence of cancer among people who are exposed to toxic chemicals at ground zero. Analysis of data from the WTC Health Programme General Responder Cohort found an increase in every type of cancer. The good news there is, however, that although the occurrence of cancer is higher in WTC exposed responders, their risk of death from these cancers is lower than the general population. A study published in 2021 that evaluated individuals enrolled in the WTC Health Programme suggests that ongoing monitoring and no-cost treatment has had a significant impact on health outcomes for this population. Let's hope, therefore, that lessons are learned from this. Dennis, devolution remains a hot topic for the sector. What can you tell us?
2023 drew to a close with new devolution deals announced for Norfolk and Suffolk, and also North East England. But the North East deal is quite extraordinary, and not just because I live here. Here's why. A £1.4 billion devolution deal for the North East of England plans to bring 7 local authority areas under the control of an elected mayor in 2024. The Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove, set out the £48 million a year deal for Northumberland, Durham, Newcastle, South Tyneside, North Tyneside, Gateshead and Sunderland after months of negotiations over the new devolved area covering over 2 million people. Council leaders agreed the deal with the Department for Levelling Up after Durham made a late bid to be included last autumn. It is the 6th such deal to be struck this year. The others involve York and North Yorkshire, the East Midlands, Cornwall, and more recently Norfolk and Suffolk, with Tory ministers attempting to sign off agreements to help with their commitment to levelling up. But my point is this. The new mayoralty for the North East is huge, spanning an area from Northumberland down to Durham, both coast and country, metropolitan and rural. The forthcoming statutory consultation is bound to be controversial. Gove said that he was proud to have agreed a historic new devolution deal with the North East that gives local leaders more power, more money, and an even greater say on how their areas are run. But the detail has not yet been revealed. Devolution, he says, is all about letting leaders who live and breathe the region decide what is in their best interests for their people and for their businesses. But commentators are bound to speculate about how focused a new mayor will be across such a wide and diverse geographical area, and how precisely will councils be involved in decision-making. The new authority would replace the existing North Tyne Authority and mayor, as well as the non-mayoral North East Combined Authority, encompassing the whole of Tyne and Wear, as well as Northumberland and Durham. The changes will now have to be agreed more widely, including through local consultation and parliamentary approval. The existing authorities in North East England are controlled by a mixture of political parties, but largely dominated by Labour. South Tyneside, North Tyneside, Sunderland, Newcastle and Gateshead are Labour-led areas, while Northumberland is held by the Conservatives. Durham is under no overall control, governed by a coalition of Lib Dems, Tories and Independents, even though Labour is the largest group. So, overall, this political cocktail will not be easy to deal with by the incoming mayor, whatever allegiances they may have.
And as we know, cocktails in January don't mix. In other news, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities is seeking views on how it might develop new national planning policy to support their wider objectives. This consultation seeks views on the government's proposed approach to updating the national planning policy framework. The government is also seeking views on its proposed approach to preparing national development management policies, how they might develop policy to support levelling up, and how national planning policy is currently accessed by users. The consultation acknowledges that fuller review of the framework will be required in due course, and that its content will depend on the implementation of the government's proposals for wider changes to the planning system, including the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. The proposals in this consultation document are designed to support the department's wider objectives, it says, of making the planning system work better for communities, delivering more homes through sustainable development, building pride in place and supporting levelling up more generally, and should be read alongside the policy paper which accompanied the introduction of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, which was published on the 11th of May. Now, there are 58 questions to this consultation, so an incredibly dense and time-consuming project to respond by the 2nd of March. But at least we are being asked the questions, and LLG will look to produce a response. If you're interested in feeding into that consultation, please do get in touch. Now, having been told last summer that we didn't need an ethics advisor, I understand that matters have now changed. Dennis.
Well, again, back to stories in December. Rather quietly, I thought, it was announced that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has appointed a new ethics advisor, as indeed we recommended. But his terms of reference remain unchanged. Here's more on this. Rishi Sunak has appointed a former banker and Quango head to be his ethics advisor after a 6-month delay in filling the post, but will not allow the new incumbent to launch his own investigations into potential wrongdoing. Sir Laurie Magnus, who spent his career in corporate finance and who chairs Historic England, will take over from Christopher Geit, who resigned as the independent advisor on ministers' interests under Boris Johnson in June. Lord Geit, who stepped down over proposals to break international law on trade policy, but was known to be unhappy about Johnson's role in lockdown breaching number 10 parties, was the second consecutive holder of the post to quit. In November 2020, Sir Alex Allen resigned in protest after Johnson refused to sack Priti Patel as Home Secretary, despite a formal investigation finding evidence that she had bullied civil servants. On entering Downing Street, Sunak pledged to put integrity and accountability at the centre of his government, but struggled to find a replacement for Geit, with several earlier candidates understood to have turned down the role. One issue had been that Sunak did not plan to allow the advisor to launch their own investigations into ministers, but would wait for number 10 to request this. Geit was known to be dissatisfied with this and had indicated that he expected his powers to be expanded. But in a letter to Magnus, released by Downing Street, Sunak wrote, "I propose to retain the existing terms of reference as agreed with your predecessor." Now, this would mean that Magnus would be unable to begin his own inquiries into the conduct of Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, over a series of bullying allegations, or about Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, over claims of leaking and ignoring legal advice over asylum. Both deny any wrongdoing. Commentators all agree, in standards and ethics, there is a trickle-down effect. What happens nationally has an impact upon standards of behaviour in local government. So watch this space as the Dominic Raab case slowly but inevitably unfolds early in the new year.
Well, I'll definitely be watching, not least because it's so intrinsically tied to the Bill of Rights, in my opinion. And finally, from me, taken from the LGA Bulletin, swimming pools, leisure centres and gyms are at risk of closure unless the government offers more support to tackle rising energy costs. The LGA and the UK Active have warned. It comes after the government announced it was scaling back the energy subsidies for the final It comes after the government announced it was scaling back the energy subsidies for the next financial year to 5.5 billion, with the leisure and support sectors receiving no support. Councillor David Renard, energy spokesman for the LGA, said libraries and museums will be eligible for extra support as energy-intensive industries, but leisure centres and swimming pools will not be equally protected from high energy prices. These valuable public facilities are at risk of reduced hours or even closure due to unsustainable and increasing costs. If the government is serious about reducing pressure on the NHS, as well as meeting its other targets on physical activity and sports participation, it must continue to support our leisure centres and public swimming pools, which help people stay active, healthy and out of hospital. Now, before we go, there's just time to let you know that board positions for Deputy Vice President, 6 regional directors, and a junior national lead leading to junior director in 2024 are all open for application via the news section of our website. Further, if the January blues are affecting you, why not sign up for one or more sessions completely free in our LLG Wellbeing Week, where we will be joined by a range of speakers examining resilience, blockers to career success, imposter syndrome, and many other helpful tools to enable 2023 to be a great year for our membership. Running the week of the 23rd of January, you can sign up via the events page of the website. And on that note, you can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 1, available on the LLG website now. So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me too.
Thank you for listening. Have a good week. I'll see you over in Zoom then, Dennis.
Yes, I'm just going there now. Thanks.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye.